2025 marks 5 years since I started this podcast talking publicly about abuse in fundamentalist Christian environments. And 5 years in, unfortunately, the stories have not stopped rolling in. Today I'm going to be sharing 2 stories that stood out to me this past month. The first involves a Baptist pastor stealing from hurricane relief donations, and the second involves a Baptist pastor and karate instructor who preyed on his students. I'll get to those stories in just a moment, but first, if you're new around here, my name is Eric Skwarczynski, and I grew up in the independent fundamental Baptist movement. On this podcast and YouTube channel, I cover stories of mental, physical, and sexual abuse within that denomination and similar fundamentalist religious sects. Be sure to hit the subscribe button to be alerted when I drop new episodes, and take a look at some of my past conversations with abuse survivors, best-selling authors like T.L. Levings and former One Tree Hill star Bethany Joy Lentz, psychologists like Hillary McBride, cult experts like Stephen Hassan, historians like Beth Allison Barr and Kristen Dumais, and even former U.S. Congressman Adam Kinzinger. I'm also currently working on a massive 4-part series about a singular church flooded with predators that I'll be releasing on YouTube very soon, so stay tuned. And remember, you can always get early access to content and behind-the-scenes looks at my work by visiting patreon.com/preacherboys. As I've alluded to, 2025 is shaping up to be one of the busiest years of the podcast so far, and that's why I'm really thankful for my friends over at Magic Mind for sending me their focus shots and their sleep performance shots. These little shots have been one of the best things that I've found when it comes to alleviating brain fog. It's packed with some great stuff like ashwagandha, lion's mane, and several vitamins that'll help you really have the boost that you need for your day without the crash associated with things like energy drinks and even extreme cups of coffee. And they also now have sleep performance shots, which help you get a better night's sleep. It's melatonin free, so you don't get any of the negative effects that melatonin can have, and it just helps you really calm down when you're winding down to go to bed. I'm sharing this with you because right now Magic Mind is giving Preacher Boys listeners 45% off their focus and sleep bundle over at magicmind.com/preacherjan. That's magicmind.com/preacherjan to get 45% off their focus and their sleep bundle. All right, now that I've shared that with you, let's go ahead and get into the stories from this month. On January 17th, the McDowell County Sheriff's Office in North Carolina shared the following statement to social media. Detective Grant Robinson with the McDowell County Sheriff's Office charged 60-year-old Jeffrey Brian Merrow of Marion, North Carolina with felony embezzlement and felony larceny. He was given a secured bond of $5,000. On October 28, 2024, Deputy Alicia Lund spoke with members of a local church regarding embezzlement, fraud, and theft. Merrow, who was pastor of Garden Creek Baptist Church at the time, was named as the suspect. During the meeting with church members, numerous receipts were presented to Lund for goods that were never purchased or services that were never rendered, all paid for using church funds. One receipt was for a claim to a local insurance company for items that were never stolen. Church members also reported that large amounts of cash donations for hurricane relief collected from attendees and the community were handed to Merrow but never turned in for their intended use. Additionally, community donated items for hurricane relief such as generators, chainsaws, heaters, and more were reported stolen. Merrow is currently on supervised probation for obtaining property by false pretense greater than $100,000 from an unrelated incident. Upon further investigation, a warrant issued for his arrest on November 19, 2024. He was taken into custody on January 5, 2025. This investigation continues. Ryan Foley of the Christian Post pointed out that according to the North Carolina Department of Adult Corrections, Merrow already has a criminal history dating back to 2006. That year, he was charged with failing to furnish buyers with a completed receipt or copy of any contract pertaining to an unspecified sale that took place in Iredell County. From October 2007 to February 2008, he was incarcerated for cheating people out of money. He's out as pastor now, at least according to Blue Ridge Baptist Association's list of churches, which shows that the church now has a new interim pastor. But still, I can't help but wonder why a pastor with a criminal history going back to 2006 was allowed to handle church funds at all, let alone maintain any ministry position. Financial crimes that directly impacted the victims of a hurricane are horrific, but this next story highlights crimes that harmed another vulnerable population, this time children. David Madison, an award-winning journalist and documentary producer based in Bozeman, Montana, published an extremely compelling piece for Cowboy State Daily on January 23, 2025, in which he detailed the conviction of a small-town Montana church pastor who was abusing an underage female child. I encourage you to go check out the full article there, and I've linked to it in the show notes of this episode so you could do just that. But for those watching, here's a chronological timeline of the events based on that article. From 2015 to 2016, Shaw allegedly sexually assaulted a 13-year-old victim under the guise of teaching karate. The article reveals that while purportedly instructing her in self-defense, the alleged victim said Shaw would touch her to demonstrate moves, but would grab her inappropriately when he did so. In one instance, when Shaw allegedly touched her vagina over her clothes while showing her how to do a roundhouse kick, this caused her to freeze, according to court documents. Later, the alleged victim told a school counselor about Shaw's inappropriate touching, and now Shaw faces a new trial for this in May of 2025. A couple years ago, on April 28, 2020, a man named Edward Bradshaw witnessed Shaw allegedly assaulting a separate minor in the Ruby Valley Baptist Church basement. Bradshaw, while working on a siding project, saw Pastor Tony Shaw lying on top of a minor child in the church basement. When Shaw stood up, Bradshaw noticed he was visibly sexually aroused. Bradshaw described the victim's reaction as, quote, helpless, and noted several concerning behaviors. First, he noted that the victim and Shaw were together all the time. Second, Bradshaw recalled witnessing another incident when he saw the victim running down the middle of the southbound lane of the U.S. Highway 287 with a, quote, terrified look on her face and, quote, looking over her shoulder. The third thing he noticed was that the victim never smiled. He also noted that Shaw made the girl walk behind him like a dog, and that the victim wore the same clothes every day. Bradshaw characterized Shaw as very manipulative and stated that Shaw's family members were scared to death of him. He also mentioned that Shaw restricted the movements of the girls in his household. Bradshaw firmly believed what he witnessed was inappropriate, stating, "You don't wrestle with a child. Men don't do that shit. That ain't right." His testimony played a crucial role in the subsequent investigation and legal proceedings against Pastor Shaw. On May 2, 2020, Deputy Leah Cox is approached by an anonymous source with information about this alleged assault. On May 12, 2020, she obtained an arrest warrant for Shaw and notified Child Protective Services. On May 13, 2020, at 11:30 a.m., Shaw was arrested at his home and transported to Gallatin County Detention Center. On May 16, 2020, investigators interviewed the victim seen in the church basement with Shaw. The article says that 3 days after Shaw's arrest, investigators interviewed the victim seen in the church basement with Shaw. She initially denied any sexual abuse, but did recall being forced by Shaw to watch videos featuring naked women. This allegedly happened in the pastor's study at the church. As court records later indicated, the victim revised her testimony with entries into her journal. Journal entries included in court documents show the girl stating, "I'm sorry I haven't been telling the truth about what happened. Tony has been touching me. I just didn't want to be moved again. But now the more I think about it, I feel sick. I feel like a stupid dork. I haven't told you. I'm so sorry." From there, many more details came to light through the girl's testimony. She said this alleged abuse started when she was just 12 years old. In April of 2021, initial jury trial was set, but delayed due to Shaw's attorney having health problems. On January 10, 2025, Shaw's trial began with a new defense attorney. During the course of the investigation and trial, it came out that Shaw feigned teaching the victim self-defense as an excuse for him to have sexual contact with them. Shaw allegedly instructed one victim to hit him in the genitals. The victim said it was weird in a pretrial interview. When the victim told Shaw to stop touching and kissing her, he reportedly told her, "I'm sorry, I can't control it." On January 16, 2025, just a few days ago, after a 5-day trial and 4 hours of deliberation, the jury unanimously found him guilty of sexual assault against an underage female child. He's currently awaiting sentencing. In May of 2025, Shaw will face a new trial for the alleged sexual assaults on a minor in 2015 and 2016. Both of these stories, while they contain very different crimes, are very chilling to me for the same reason. You have pastors purporting to be doing very noble acts. You have, on one hand, a pastor who is gathering donations to take to hurricane victims who've lost everything. On the other hand, you've got a pastor who is purporting to tell kids he's helping them learn self-defense to protect themselves. But yet you've got the pastor collecting donations and stealing to benefit himself at the expense of literal hurricane victims. And on the other, you've got a pastor who's using the opportunity to teach a kid self-defense as a time to prey on them. It just goes to show you that no matter how noble and how caring someone can be, you really don't know what's happening on the inside. And unfortunately, it's a reminder that we have to think twice about who it is that we trust. Because as always, predators don't look like predators. They can look like somebody trying to do a good thing. And sometimes we just don't know their true motives until things are too late. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Preacher Boys podcast. I'll see you on the next episode.